politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and politics of compassion
But America,
and love are right.
we are not going back.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Raise Red, Living Blue podcast. We've got a special guest. Candice, how are you?
I'm good, Jason. How are you?
I wanted to let everybody know it's 6 p.m., so we both worked long days. So I'm a little bit wiped. So I'm going to need you to bring the energy, which seems to be one of your superpowers.
Oh, well, thank you. That's not a compliment I've received so far. Yeah, no, my childcare fell through today. I worked my full-time job, had some errands to run this afternoon, so we're rocking the strong energy right now.
I just wanted you to just introduce yourself, tell us, the district you're running in and the seat you're running for and all that good stuff.
So I am Dr. Candice Duvieilh, and I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives for Alabama Congressional District 5. That is Jackson, Morgan, Madison, Lawrence, Limestone, and a little sliver on the eastern side of Lauderdale County. I am running because I am a mom. I have a family. My husband's a disabled veteran. He works here in the aerospace industry. I, of course, am working a full-time job while trying to raise our 2-year-old. And on top of that, I am uniquely qualified to represent this district. I won't go into all those details. I am a policy analyst. I'm a government accounting expert, and I am ready to take on the negotiations in DC to make sure that North Alabama is getting what it deserves.
Golly, I feel dumber after you just said all that.
I never want to make people feel that way ever. I want people to feel empowered.
Well, we need smart people because we've got very complicated issues that need solutions, and whoever we've got up there is not doing a great job.
I agree wholeheartedly. I got nothing else to say about that other than I completely agree. And I think, competency in our government right now, what I'm seeing is the people in our government who uniquely understand government are the ones that are using it for evil, right?
Yeah.
And the ones that should be using it for good aren't really able to do so because the ones that understand government are fighting against them. Not to say that that is a party difference. It's just that we need more good people who understand government and know how to leverage those tools to protect people when our constitutional rights are being violated.
Yeah. So real quick, I wanted to just kind of throw this at you. So your husband is a disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
He served in what branch of the armed forces?
So my husband was in the U.S. Army. He did a tour in Afghanistan and a tour in Kuwait. He was an aircraft engine mechanic.
So I have heard, and you probably heard this too, that Democrats, the Democrats, they hate America. So why would a veteran marry a woman and have children with her if she hated America?
Well, my husband was raised blue, live in blue. So his love of country, my in-laws have always been very democratic, very liberal in their beliefs. They, of course, he grew up on the North Shore around New Orleans. He was actually born in Orleans Parish. So they kind of have that background. So he's a American loving Democrat, liberal, whatever you want to call it. He just loves his country and always has.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of things that trigger me, but that really gripes my ass.
It bothers me too. There's a lot of, let's say, things that have been decided about Democrats as a whole that really doesn't apply. Like, I am a 2A supporting household. We own weapons. We're very, very safe. And we expect other people who have those weapons to be very, very safe with them. And we are okay with laws that require weapon owners to be very, very safe with them, right? So all of these things are a spectrum. And to just say that overarchingly this whole group of people is hating on the country or not patriotic or whatever. We grew up in the same time, right? The thing that inspired my husband to join the military inspired hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of other millennials to join the military, which was 9/11. Because we all remember where we were when that happened, right? Mm-hmm. That is love of country. That is wanting to protect your neighbor. That's not political.
I saw a candidate that is running for Congress here more local to me. It was a friend of his who shared a post that Tim Walz made on X about assault rifles, these magazines and whatever the components are that turn a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. He's like, we got to get rid of all this crap.
Hmm.
And of course, this is a red-blooded MAGA, and he was like, that's against the Constitution, the Second Amendment, yada yada yada. I was
No,
like,
it's not.
where
No, it's not.
where where in the Constitution does it talk about assault rifles?
What is it? A well-trained, well-organized militia. There's the language, the very first sentence of the Second Amendment. They started the Second Amendment with, you need to be safe and well-trained as a militia, and in doing so, you should own your own weapons. But they put safety with those weapons and understanding of those weapons before the actual ownership piece. Our founding fathers knew exactly what they were doing. People just have to stop cherry picking these things.
Yeah, they're twisting it and contorting it to fit their own narrative and their own, you know, version of freedom and patriotism and all that. But I was very proud of myself for my final retort, which was, hey, so and so, I'm going to be looking for you on the front lines if this government moves one or two more paces closer to authoritarianism. Your dope tread on me ass needs to be up there in Washington, fighting against this tyrannical government. That was very cathartic.
My husband and anyone who has seen me and him together out in public is always shocked by it. I always joke that he's Republican presenting because he has a Ram 2500 lifted red diesel truck with "Don't Tread on Me" tags. And he is not, he is a never Trumper. Like he's never in his life been a Republican. And so that is something that we are working to flip on its head. And he's got a big beard and he's got a hard part. He looks like he owns a motorcycle and all of those things. So
Yeah, I've done a little stalking on Facebook, and I was like, he is, the quintessential like vision of MAGA. But I'm with him. Like I have a "Don't Tread on Me" big tumbler that I got from Bucky's. And my wife was like, why in the hell did you buy that? I hate drinking out of it. I hate seeing it in the cabinet. I'm like, they don't get to take this stuff from us. They don't
"Don't
get to
Tread
own
on
this
Me"
stuff.
was originally used by suffragettes. Like it was, well, it wasn't originally used by suffragettes, but in one of its iterations throughout history, it was used by suffragettes fighting for women's votes. Like all of these symbols have rolled through history and gained different symbolism.
Yeah, and so that's what I really want to get into is, in after we get through with your Raised Red Living Blue story, is just what's going on in terms of like what it means to be or what the female experience is in the United States right now.
Ooh.
Whew, yeah. But before we get into that,
We get to start with the easy stuff.
yeah, let's keep it easy. So you were raised red like me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in a Republican household. My father, to this day, is a construction worker. He owned a concrete and steel construction company throughout my entire childhood. And we were very much raised on that you respect your elders for no other reason than they are older than you. And of course, my mom was Pentecostal, my dad was Southern Baptist. So that played a big role in how my parents kind of viewed the world and the way that they trained us to view the world. But of course, Google came about when I was a child, right? So I lived in
Yeah.
that transition time of like, yeah, as a child, if I wanted to know the answer to a question, I would go ask my parents and have to trust whatever they said to me. But as a teenager, I had access to all kinds of information. So I think that was very frustrating for my parents to watch that happen.
Now, are they still red?
So my mom, not so much. My mom, I would say, flipped with Hillary. My mom voted for Hillary, and I think I can't speak to her voting record, but I do think that's the point where her views kind of flip. My dad still owns his red hat and carries it on the dashboard of his work truck every day.
So I'm guessing he was, energized by the recent State of the Union speech. I don't know if y'all had
So
a chance.
I don't really talk to my dad very often, and that's not intentional. It is just that he and I can't have a conversation right now without both of us becoming very passionate about the topics that we're talking about. And so we've just kind of distanced ourselves. Again, not on purpose. If my dad called me, I would answer the phone. But we've kind of come to a mutual understanding of like, he knows, and I have like MAGA cousins and things like that that know I will be very good in Congress. And they know that there's a dissonance between what they've been trained to believe about Democrats and what they know about me. So I'll say this, one of my cousins who I was kind of scared to tell that I was running for office because I didn't know how he was going to respond, but I was pretty sure it was going to be awful and he was going to be mean. And his immediate response was, I can't wait to see you in DC because you are going to mess those guys up. And he, I mean, just wholeheartedly like knows that about me and was able to disconnect what he'd been trained to believe about Democrats from what he knows about his cousins. Unfortunately, not everyone in my family has been able to do that, but it gives me a little bit of hope.
Well, was this decision to run, did you worry that it was going to impact your job or
No.
relationships or anything like that?
No. So I decided I was going to run for office, and that's what I was going to do. Whenever I felt that call to this is the next step, this is how I have to serve my community, all of that other stuff was just like extra paperwork more than anything else. So I emailed HR at my company and I was basically like, hey, this is a thing that I'm doing. Hope it's cool. And they never responded to that email. So I take that as a we're staying out of it, which is totally fine by me. But I have also always operated from a place of if I lose my job over this, I am okay with that. I live in a unique place where I have privilege that while it would be a huge strain on my family financially, we would be able to, we'd have to downsize our lives, but we would be able to make that work. I hope I never have to, but I feel compelled in this moment because of my credentials, because of my privilege, and because of what's on the line with my daughter. I have no other option, and I'll deal with whatever fallout comes from that.
Yeah, so many of us feel the same. Like, no matter what the consequences are, we just can't sit on the sidelines. And, we've got people paying the ultimate price. So it's really scary to think about. What about like friends? You've been disowned by a bunch of people, you've been unfollowed big time.
So one of the interesting things about this has been I've been unfollowed, I've been unfriended, and it's all by people that I wasn't really surprised that they unfriended me when I took these steps and started making the content that I was making and things like that. What has surprised me is the people that want to know more, the people that I have kind of made something click. So I have many friends who considered themselves Republican, female and male, who, when I decided to run for office, said, okay, wait a second, because what I'm being told about Democrats does not make sense against what I know about Candice as a person. So it has actually put me in a unique place where I get to have conversations with people
Mm.
where they're like, hey, Fox News told me that Democrats are doing this. I don't feel like you would be down for doing this. So can you explain it to me? And then we actually have some real conversations and look at some more sources and research and scientific facts and things like that. So yeah, I've lost some friends over it, but again, if that's what it has to be, that's what it has to be. Because right now I'm standing between my daughter and whatever comes out of this administration. I'm standing between my daughter and every other child like her, and that is where my conviction is rooted. If I lose friends over that, if I lose family over that, so be it. But my daughter will not have less rights than I do right now. I'm not okay with that.
Well, and if women like you never stood up and spoke out, who knows what the world would look like. It'd be a very dark and sad place. But, there's a lot of people that made a lot of sacrifices to gain, you know, who was it? Was it Mandy talking about? She's like, she said the quiet part out loud that women are second class citizens.
Yeah, she made an amazing post about that the other day, and she was just talking about the difficulties of name changes, right? And I love the people that I've met on this journey, and Mandy is one of those people that I've just
Mhm.
had the unique opportunity to get to know, and I love her energy. But that's where we're at. Women are, I say it's the if you can say that you gave us something, then you don't acknowledge that we have rights to the thing that you gave us. You consider it a gift that you gave us, and we should be grateful to you for it, which means you don't recognize that it is an inherent right. And that I have a problem with. And there's so many men, like one of my favorite comments that I've gotten as far as like the negative side of it, I made a post about we need more female representation in Congress, and someone commented on it and was like, I bet Katie Britt would have something else to say about that. And I was like, you're right. Two out of our 8 congressional delegates out of this state are in Congress. Do you feel like that was a mic drop point? I don't know what you want me to say to that because we're 50% of the population. That's 25% of the congressional delegation. You're not making a great point here, right? So Those are the ones that get me. And then the people that, compare us to bald eagles, which is, fun too.
Well, I want to make a couple comments. I want to give your friends that came from curiosity over judgment a shout out. Kudos to them. I mean, that's awesome. And that's what we should all strive to do. I have a hard time understanding how people can, still be so energized by this president, given all that we've known, all that we've seen. But
Also, I feel a little responsibility in that. And you're absolutely right. I love those people that come from that place of curiosity. But I also feel a responsibility to stand in that gap. To when you hear about Democrats, I want you to relate that to me, your friend, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, whatever it is. I want you to have to juxtapose those two things in your brain and really think about it. And I feel a responsibility in that as well.
I love what you said here about train to think. And I just think this is such a like spot on way to describe. And this is putting it on terms I think that are less off-putting because what I would say is, I'm quick to call somebody a magatard. I'm quick to call somebody a
I've
cultist.
seen your posts, Jason. I
Yeah.
love them, but
I can't
I
help.
just
I'm
I don't use
emotional.
charged language. I try to avoid it.
But this is, I think, more to the point of what's actually been happening. I mean, you can say, if you tell somebody they're brainwashed, I mean, it's easy for them to just go, but they have been trained to think for decades like this. There is no other explanation that could make sense to anybody.
When it has, it's been in anything, the way that your brain works, you are trained to think that way, right? If you grew up in a situation where anger was the first response because sadness was something we never wanted to feel, then your brain is trained to jump past sadness and go to anger. And the only way to fix that is to acknowledge it and try to reverse that wiring. And that happens on a global scale through social media, through the way that news is presented to us. This has all been happening to people. And I think that is something that gets lost in the conversation of like forgiveness, empathy, welcoming people to the resistance, that conversation. I think the fact that people have been manipulated gets lost,
Mm.
right? And like you said, you started with women like me, right? That's a unique type of person to have the wherewithal, to have the mental strength, to do the training, to recognize your own privilege. All of these things take a lot of effort that a lot of people, it's not that they're not willing to, it's just that they've never been presented with the instruction booklet on how.
Mm.
So if I can be a symbol of what a Democrat actually is in juxtaposition to this evil version that's being presented to you, if I can break that, just that, then the dominoes will start falling after that. So,
Mm. I love it.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots, we would love for you to connect with us on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok at Raised Red Living Blue. Okay, back to the episode.
Well, let's dive into the difficult things. I was just curious to hear somebody who is highly educated just kind of give us their retort for somebody saying, and this may be a little dramatic, but using the term baby killer, because I have been called a baby killer online. So
that, again, an inflammatory language to distort the whole point is insane to me. The thing that really gets me on that is when I hear women say things like that.
mhm.
Because I can be honest with you, this is one of those things where if you don't have a medical degree or a uterus, you really need to butt out of the conversation. And I say that point blank. And this covers my view on women's access to healthcare and trans access to healthcare. If your doctor has prescribed you a globally accepted standard of care in response to a diagnosis that has been given to you as a patient, no one else needs to be involved in that decision.
Gosh, I'm sorry, but I wanted to just to get this, throw this against the wall and see what happens. But I was reading a comment. There's this anti-gender affirming surgery or whatever it is. A lot of legislation going on in that regard. A comment. This is, referred to abortion as like killing babies, they were framing it as babies getting ripped out of the hands of their parents and having their penises chopped off. That's what they think this is.
No, and they do. I say they, I mean the people that control the narrative on these news outlets and these social media platforms and these podcast bros and talk shows or whatever. They are using inflammatory, absolutely false narratives like that to demonize a very small portion of the population so they can shove through legislation that allows them to control other people. Period. And it's absolutely unacceptable. Again, diagnosis of transgender is globally accepted in the medical community. The standard of care, whether that be hormone blockers, hormone replacement therapy, or gender reassignment surgery, is a global standard of care. That is between a doctor and their patient. And the fact that anybody else wants to be involved in that conversation is really weird. Like, just stay out of it.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I started this podcast with a female real estate agent colleague of mine. And she basically shut me down and told me I was not allowed to bring up anything trans on the show anymore because I was insensitive to it. It was just ignorance. But, you know, she is like, she's a lesbian woman and she is like alpha. So she tells you to shut up, you better shut up. But I tell you what, I went to see a book reading in Tuscaloosa with a former University of Alabama professor who had to leave the state of Alabama because he had a child. The child wanted to transition and this child could not get the care that they needed. And so they had to leave the state and he wrote a book about it. But hearing his words, but just his heart and talk about the struggle and the pain, having to witness that as a dad, it really changed my perspective. And so you mentioned this global community. This is what I think is a big problem with the Republican Party is that either they don't see or recognize there's a global community or they don't want to be a part of it. Because so like when every time a Democrat blames Biden for the inflation, I'm like, son of a bitch. Like every major economy across the globe suffered inflation as a result of COVID. What say you?
I mean, I completely agree. We live in a connected world, right? We're connected. We've been connected since they started trading between the continents. Like that, and that has we've only become more connected. No man is an island. No country is exempt from global shunning or global community. But you don't get to live with one foot in both places. We either live in a world where we accept that we are part of a community where we need to work together for the greater good of all humanity, or we're going to suffer under our own demise. Because, I mean, we're already seeing that, right? We already saw the president of France basically calling on other countries to build up military might because what we agreed to bring to NATO, to the UN, is military might. That is what the United States agreed to bring. So that's one reason when people are like, we're not the world's military, we actually kind of agreed to be. But now they are trying to figure out how to move on without us. And the idea of that terrifies me. The idea of our children not being able to grow up in a place where they're exposed to different cultures, different languages, different types of people. I don't want that for my child. I want her to know how rich and beautiful our global community is, and I do not want to be isolated from it.
Yeah, and we don't want to deter people from coming here that are super smart and, you know, developing cures and vaccines and chips and all this stuff. I mean, people don't want to visit here, much less go to school here or make this their home anymore.
Well, and we're already seeing that on a small scale here in Alabama, right? OBGYN residencies have dropped over 20%. Applications for those residencies have dropped over 20% because they can't safely practice here. And our laws are too volatile surrounding the care that they're trying to provide for patients. So they choose to go elsewhere. That is just going to start spanning out across the nation. And this is something that I recognized in college when I started kind of talking to people about the different states and where we were all going to go after college and what that looked like. And one of the biggest issues, and this was back in 2012, that we were discussing was that the state of Mississippi was investing in our education, and then we were leaving the state of Mississippi with that, right? The state of Alabama is doing the same thing, investing in education for our students here, but then they're getting an education and they're taking it other places. We need to create a community, a state where people want to stay and live. And at the end of the day, we have people that come here because they're like, oh, the cost of living is lower in Alabama. First of all, try and buy a house in Madison, Alabama. No, it's not. But second of all, we need to create a community that is accepting of all kinds of people. And until we can do that, we're going to continue to deter people from coming here
Well,
and staying here.
do you know who Mark Wayne Mullen is? I believe he's a senator from Oklahoma, but he considers Trump one of his best good friends.
Oh, that's sweet.
He's a total hayseed. He just rails against all this stuff. He's like, yeah, Trump lowering the gas prices. Where in what textbook, search engine, AI researched, information does it say that presidents have the power to raise or lower gas prices? But he was he was being interviewed by Caitlin Collins on CNN the other night, and he was just talking about how Trump does this and Biden didn't do this and all this stuff, the inflation 9.1, all this stuff. And then in another breath, he mentioned the global economy. And I was like, you stupid son of a bitch. I mean, you're like debunking what you're saying as you're saying it. So it's just incredibly frustrating, but it's like climate, right? I mean, the US doesn't have its own like air, like we share it with the globe. So I just, for those of you out there that don't understand that we have, if there's a pandemic, it's going to infect the whole planet.
And it's no man is an island. We're too connected
Yeah.
at this point in time. And what the point that you're making is, I mean, I can't stand to watch a conservative, Republican, whatever, get just like one thought away from the point. Like you are just, you're right here. And if you just go one step further, we will be on the same page. And I've had those conversations with people where I've said like, okay, I agree that your thing's a problem and you agree that my thing's a problem. And we could solve both of our things by doing the thing I suggested. Like, but nobody's going that extra step of like, that's what compromise in government is supposed to look like. We don't have to agree on what the problem is. We just have to agree that the solution is going to help both of us.
That's just the brilliance, I think, of the Republican machine in training people how to think. So they've trained people to think that you are a bad person. And who wants to try to compromise with a bad, you don't compromise, much less really associate with bad people. So, there's enough there. Let's get back because this has got to be very female oriented. I want to talk about the issues that are impacting females the most. Your view, I'm just, shot in the dark here, but your view on abortion would be that it is healthcare.
Abortion is healthcare. Full stop. Abortion is a human right because it is a life-saving healthcare procedure. There's so many people that want to discuss the nuances of that. 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't have a medical degree, butt out. Like that is if the global medical community has decided that this is the standard of care to save a woman's life, this is what we allow to happen. You don't get to outlaw that. You don't get to decide that you don't like it. It makes you uncomfortable. If it makes you uncomfortable, don't get one. I don't understand the need to control other people's choices.
Well, the argument that I've really attached to, and I think it's so true. I want to get your thoughts on it, but it's you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. Because after birth, it's like, if you don't pull yourself up by the bootstraps, good luck.
And I've heard that argument and I don't disagree with that argument. I think that that argument moves us away from the point of the conversation because both of these things that we're talking about, caring for children after birth and making sure that we can take care of mothers while they're gestating, those are two issues that are both equally important, right? And I think that we have to be sure that we're not dismissing one in favor of the other. We need to provide support to moms. I am a mom. I would love for my daughter to have a sibling. I want my daughter to have a sibling, but my husband and I are terrified about the outcomes and the dangers and the complications that can come from me going through another pregnancy. And that is the reality a lot of women are living through. So when you tell me, when you stand up there and say that millennials aren't having as many children, millennials are ruining the family unit. No, you are. You're ruining the family unit with your stupid laws that aren't allowing me to feel safe in growing my family. And then you're ruining it more so beyond that because now I can't afford childcare. My daughter's childcare is $1,200 a month. That is a lower cost childcare, by the way. I got a discounted rate that's only locked in for a year, and then it's going to go up by $300. We have to make sure if you want more children, if you want to grow the population, if this is actually your goal, then make it possible for couples to do it from start to finish. And stop saying, I didn't tell you to have a kid. That is the one that gets me. I didn't tell you to have a kid. Can you imagine in times where we actually did live in community with one another a million years ago, right? And the medic, the healthcare person, the spiritual guide, as it were, of those groups was just like, I didn't tell you to have a kid. That's not my problem. You should probably go learn your own medicinal stuff. That's insane because that's not how people who live in community with one another live.
I'm curious about something here. Just even taking it deeper than that. So women are under a lot of pressure to have intercourse. Is that a fair statement?
I mean, yeah,
It's like an expectation. If you don't, then you're a prude. There's all these cultural norms.
I would say that there is a cultural expectation that is kind of our currency to exist in the world. Like our only reason for existing is to provide that, and that is disgusting in its
Because
own
women
right.
are the kind of people that people come out of.
Oh gosh. When I tell you, I watched that clip and the amount of rage
I can imagine.
that I felt because there is something that no man, no person who has never given birth to a child and felt those rise and fall of hormones or even gotten pregnant and miscarried, that is something that is such a powerful experience and it's such a scary experience and it's such an overwhelming experience that if you haven't experienced it, and you say something as dismissive as to say that women are the people that people come out of, you will receive a fiery rage from every woman that you can. And it is a thought process that doesn't make sense to me because I watched my husband when I went into labor and everything became real for him because it doesn't become real for men until that moment.
Right.
And I watched him just become overwhelmed with what my body had been through. It was like the last 10 months of me growing our child. He was just like, oh, she eats a lot of Pop-Tarts. Yay, we have Pop-Tarts in the house. And then he was like, oh my gosh, what has this done to her? You
Man.
have to have empathy to understand that. And if you're not going to bring people in the room who have personally experienced that and can speak to it, then you don't need to be talking about it or legislating about it.
Mm.
Full stop.
Well, and like I don't know if this happens in real life, but like when you're watching a movie and a female gets pregnant, a lot of times she'll go to the boyfriend or the lover and go, "Hey, I don't expect you to do anything. You know, this is my problem."
That is something. The onus is always put on women in those scenarios, which is, again, that's a societal standard that we should all be retraining our brains to respond differently to that idea. right? It's the same as the US men's hockey team laughing because the people around them were laughing. You have to retrain your brain to not try and fall in line with those ideals. And that I think is just a societal standard that we have to combat with everything we have. It's the thing where when everyone's laughing, you have to look at them and say, "What's so funny?
Yeah.
Explain it to me like I am five."
I hope that's genuine. I'm proud of them for saying, at least some of them saying they regret laughing. But like when you're in the moment, it's the president, but you know, what a horrible thing to say. And I think this is what we're really talking about here.
But it started such a useful conversation. It has,
Yes.
there is a great conversation that's come out of it. And I think that is the thing that we all need to be talking about, right?
And it allows you to visualize, to feel, to internalize the difference between like us and them. I feel like it's like, we deserve a better president. I mean, those hockey players deserved better leadership in that moment. I mean, and that's who he is at his core. He's like, well, women, that's cute. You in the go mo, that's cute.
I just can't imagine moving through life without feeling a responsibility of what I'm representing as I make those moves, right? If I get elected to this position, when I get elected to this position, because we
Mm,
speak it into existence, when I get elected to this position, I will no longer, I don't leave my house and go out into the world as Candice. I leave my house, go out into the world as the congressional candidate Candice. And that's not as like I've created this person. It is, I am a representation of every person who has promised to vote for me. I am a representation of every person who follows me, interacts with my content on socials. I am representing each one of those people. And it is my responsibility to make sure that I'm doing that well. I do not understand men like our current president, the Secretary of Defense, moving through life the way that they are. I can tell you this, one of the petty things that I've gotten mad about over the last year is the Space Command sign reveal at
mm.
Redstone because it looked like a like clip art image that someone just like printed on a giant banner and glued to a piece of plywood. And that made me angry because in Alabama's 5th district, we have such a robust art scene. We have so many amazing artists. We have countless machine shops that could have done something beautiful out of metal. We could have made it something grand. And it looks like someone did it on a Friday afternoon by telling an intern, "Hey, I forgot we need a sign Monday morning." I know that that's a petty thing. I know that there's bigger things going on in the world, but that is the pattern of everything that comes out of this administration. It looks like it was done on a Friday afternoon by an intern who really just wants to go home. The executive orders are all worded horribly. The ICE agents being grossly undertrained and then being like, they don't need constitutional training. They can figure that out as they're going. All the handling of the Epstein files by the Department of Justice, all of those things are just gross lack of understanding of what you represent. That is the man that is going out onto the world stage and representing this nation. That should scare all of us.
Let's dive into the Epstein files, cover up, whatever you want to call it. I mean, your goal in this podcast is not to get into all the details. I think you have kind of a broader, I would even say maybe even a worldview of this. It's an overarching kind of point that you want to make to our audience. So let us have it.
So again, I will not litigate the details of the Epstein files. I'm not a litigator. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not an investigator. I'm none of those things. What I am is a mom. And what I have seen is other moms furious because how can you care about anything else right now other than the fact that global superpowers, multiple global superpowers, are being run by groups of pedophiles? Not one single just guy, no, groups of them that have been at this for 30 years. For 30 years, This evidence has been present and it has been allowed to not only continue, but get bigger, to grow, to gain its own geography, to gain its own culture.
Class. Yeah.
Class, yes. It is absolutely disgusting. And I said it in a speech the other day when I was talking to a group of people. I am supposed to stand up here and tell you how I want healthcare for everybody. And I absolutely do. I think it's gross that people are dying because they don't live close enough to a hospital. And all of our children need access to education. Absolutely. Children need to be armed with knowledge so that they can advocate for themselves as productive members of their community, right? We need infrastructure. I think it's crazy that people in North Alabama are spending an extra 2 hours a day away from their family in a car because we don't have the infrastructure to support that. But how am I supposed to talk about those things when there is evidence that the man running this country, that the men running global superpowers are covering up for each other, torturing children? At this point, it's beyond just the pedophilia. They have tortured infants, right? That's what the allegations are. And I'm furious. I'm furious.
This issue seems like one that should just break through. Like it should be able to get through that hard, thick MAGA shell around the brain, because you don't cover up some, if you're innocent, you don't try to cover things up. Right? I mean, just simple little things like that you go, oh yeah, this is bullshit. Because we see it's happening with like Joe Rogan, and I'm trying to think of I always forget the Navy SEAL podcast guy that's gotten super popular. But they were like Joe and
Oh,
this
I know
guy.
who you're talking about.
They're like the two lead bro podcast guys. Both of them are like, this is bullshit. No more. We're out. F you guys. This is sick.
One of the most inspiring content niches that has come out of the release of the files for me has been millennial dads. Watching millennial dads who previously had been quiet, sitting in their privilege, being able to move through life without anyone knowing whether they were Democrat or Republican and all of that, just being like, nope, I'm ready. You were hurting children. What the hell is wrong with you? And just that has been the most inspiring thing for me, because we're seeing that group of people start to really stand up. And that's what we need. Like we talked about at the beginning of this, we need more people like my husband, more people like Jeff Ramsey, more people like you standing in the void and saying, I believe in these ideals. I am a Democrat as well. Reconcile that with whatever garbage has been built in your head, right? We need more of that as much as humanly possible.
Well, I want to hear some information, some of the story. I mean, if I could have been a fly on the wall during your interview with Dale Jackson, I want you to kind of tell us about, because is that why you went on to discuss, was it abortion or what was it?
I could not find a email from Dale about that interview that was more than 3 words long. It was a whole lot of yes, no, and it all came out of him in a different show, talking to a different person entirely, saying, who the hell is Candice Duvieilh? And my team was like, I guess we're gonna have to go on and tell him who the hell Candice Duvieilh is. And he brought up the Epstein files, which again, I'm not going to litigate this. I'm just going to tell you it's gross. But during that interview, I guess it was, he's an entertainer, so interview feels strong. But during that, he said with his whole chest that he didn't believe the survivors, that he is completely dismissing the survivors' stories. And that for me was the end of any productive conversation that could be had.
So what does he mean when he says that? He's saying that these rapes, this molestation, it never happened. It's a hoax.
I mean, I think he just wants views.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any way to tell what
yeah, or
entertainer like that
rage,
actually thinks.
he might have been rage baiting you.
I'm not really sure.
That's why, I mean, I got an invite, as you know, to join him live in studio, and I was like, oh, no way, because he would have rage baited me. I would have been a terrible representative of the resistance, because he would have ignited my temper.
Well,
But
and that's what anyone in that industry does. It's an entertainment thing. And I've had a lot of real conversations with people about the algorithm and how that works. I think that's one thing about CK and his thing that a lot of people don't understand. He built his fortune off of creating two different versions of himself. The rage baiting, debating version and the Christian father version, because those things got clicks from two completely different corners of the internet.
right.
It was all about money. There's no way to know what that man himself actually thought because both of those people were concocted for clicks.
Well, I've seen TikTokers admit that they're like the opposite of MAGA. They just do it for money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happens throughout the internet. So and that's where I think like we circle back to the emotional control that I have, the angrier I get, the calmer I get. And I always say my superpower is diplomacy and the way that I choose words and the way that I say things. I think that's where that comes in because I think what this world needs right now more than anything else is the temperature brought down. We need to have more direct conversations. We need to stop letting our emotions get the best of us. And I know that that's extremely difficult, especially trust me, I feel rage inside of myself, but I also feel concern for my fellow community members. I have friends that I will see them start posting or reposting or liking or commenting in a certain way that it kind of becomes kind of manic. And I will reach out to them and be like, hey, are you doing okay today? Have you put the phone down and walked outside? Because that machine is set to keep your attention and it's set to when something triggers an emotion in you, it's set to give you something else to trigger it again and again and again and again. And it becomes a torture box in your hand. So I think an awareness around that is very important and an awareness around the fact that, sometimes what you're looking at on the phone, it's not real.
So true. Did Dale ask you this or throw this in your face? I just see this as the predominant argument right now because it seems like, the more revelations that come out about this, the harder it is to ignore, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But the Republicans are now going, this is their primary talking point, at least from my perspective or standpoint, is that they're going, why didn't y'all do something about it? Why didn't Biden do something about it? You know, why has it gone on this long? And you mentioned, I mean, this has been going on for decades and it's a global thing and it's a long running thing. But if you get pressed on that issue, what is your response?
Hillary went on the floor of the House of Representatives today to testify about this. Ask her. Ask her. You're talking about, I think we should ask them. I would love to know the answer to that question. I have an idea of the timeline and how everything wiggled its way off of Pam Bondi's desk, but all of this started on Pam Bondi's desk in Florida, right?
Mm.
She's the first one that had the files. She has been in control of these files for 20 plus years. And so yeah, people want to make this about Trump, Biden, Clinton. I don't care who is responsible. I want all of them held accountable if they need to be held accountable. But Pam Bondi, she has been working with this case since it started in Florida. So I think we really need to ask her.
Such a good point. And I would just add the hearing today with Hillary was closed door. She wanted it to be public. And then when Lauren Boebert snapped a picture of it and put it on and tweeted it out, she again said, all right, well, if y'all going to do this, bring the press in. Let's open the doors to the public. Let's publicize this right now. So she ain't got nothing to hide. But
no, and her and former President Clinton have both of them have been very clear that they have given all the information that they can and they will work with the authorities in any way that they can. And she put out a 4-page letter. That is an example of what transparency looks like. That is what we should be expecting from our sitting president, from the sitting cabinet. You want to talk about a president from 30 years ago and a presidential candidate from 20 years ago? What? No, I want to know why. I want to know why Pam Bondi has had this on her desk for the last 20 years and didn't do anything with it, other than find a way to not prosecute anyone other than Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in a very nice prison.
And just two wrongs don't make a right. But this is your, gosh, you could be the hero party of the like the century if you came out hard and battled this and tried to clean it up because it is a big, big mess. I
Well,
want to
that's
just
they say like, sorry,
no,
but
go ahead.
just final thought on that is the idea of like we can't go after everyone in the files or the system would collapse. Let it. Let it collapse. We will rebuild it. And you know what? Honestly, I've seen moms rebuild things from rubble. Like I survived Hurricane Katrina in South Mississippi. I've seen what moms are capable of. Let it fall.
Mm, so good. I want to talk about just bring it a little more locally and because my opinion is if you turn your back on reality like this, it's just disqualifying to me. The Republican delegation in this state, I don't care what the issue is, abortion, climate change, Epstein, whatever. It's horrifying. But if you're not going to show leadership and you are not going to like speak out, I mean, I don't just say something compassionate about to the victims.
That's the part for me that I get very frustrated with because as an elected official, this is the America I was promised as a child, right? In fifth grade civics class. But as a voter, I have a tiny, tiny bit of power in that little checkbox, in that little punch card. And when I use that to elect somebody, I'm handing them my piece of power, which collectively, with every other person's power, gives them a whole lot of power. Katie Britt has the power of 50% plus one, right? Of the voters in Alabama. It was instilled in her when they voted for her. How are you not raging? How are you not screaming about this from the top of your lungs, other than you don't want to upset somebody that
Yeah.
did not vote for you, that did not hand their power over to you, that you do not answer to at the end of the day, right? Because, well, but do you? Because donors. But hey, that's a whole different conversation. That is the part that frustrates me because I still firmly, foundationally believe that public service is to be in service of the public and everything else is after that.
Well, I mean, I just feel like this whole Epstein debacle has even further reinforced the need for women to be the majority in anything. I'm talking about the boardroom all the way up to, the halls of Congress.
Well, I'm glad that you feel that way, Jason. Hopefully a lot of other men do as well.
It seems
I
obvious.
think it's, and I said this the other day in my speech. I was like, look, guys, y'all have had thousands of years to try and get this right in this global world of ours. And you're not doing so hot. So just let us try it and just let's see how it works out. But again, that is a humorous way of saying it's already been proven that matriarchal societies thrive more because women on the whole, not all women, right? But on the whole, the majority of women operate with a children first and then everyone else perspective of the world. And if you're putting your effort and your investment into the future of your community will grow. That's the nature of the beast.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots, don't forget you can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button and we would love a review. Okay, now back to the episode.
What do women listening to this or watching this need to know about the SAVE Act?
So here is the thing about that. First of all, it is going to do what you got to do to get a copy of your marriage license and all of that paperwork in order if you haven't touched it in years. That is the number one thing that I would tell women right now, just to kind of doomsday prep over it. The next thing is that the Supreme Court has already ruled that measures like this are against our constitutional rights. Like anything where the proposed benefit of eliminating voter fraud does not outweigh the stress it would put on and the barriers it would create to people voting legally is unconstitutional, period. The Supreme Court's already ruled on that. Ashley Dunham's made content about it. I'm not going to steal her thunder on that. But it is a violation of our constitutional rights, but so is what the state house in Tennessee and Kansas and Alabama are doing right now. So this is the world we live in, and
What
we just
tended,
have to make sure that our voices are heard.
yeah, I mean, talk about going back in time and turning back the clock. But you mentioned like your daughter is a toddler. What if she was 15 years old, 16 years old? Like, how would you describe? And she came to you and she said, Mom, why do they want to make it harder for women to vote? Or Mom, why does the president not congratulating the women's hockey team on winning gold? It's like the motivation. Like, why should I strive to
So to your
accomplish
first
anything?
question, I would look my daughter in the eye and tell her that there are men running this country who believe that women's right to vote should be revoked. But since it's a constitutional right, they can't actually overturn that without, 33 states agreeing to do that. So instead, they're going to create laws that make it harder for us to go vote. That's what I would tell my daughter. And as far as the men's hockey team goes, I mean, the same concept. Men don't like to be faced with the fact that women are not weaker than them, that we are, in fact, capable of participating in the same sports and winning and going to the same places and doing the same things. There's a lot of men who have fragile egos and don't like to be reminded that women are strong and tough and capable of the same things they are.
I just can't imagine how disheartening it is for so many young women out there. Like, gosh, they don't take us seriously. We're objects. We're here for their entertainment. Any consequences that happens, if we're raped,
My response to that specifically would be they don't need to take you seriously. You need to take you seriously. Their opinions don't matter one way or the other. I don't need a man to take me seriously for me to know that I'm a serious person. I don't need a man to tell me that my doctorate degree is worthy of something for me to know that my intelligence is valuable, right? You have to live outside of other people's recognition of your personhood. It's the only way that you're going to move. It's the only way to fight against this.
well, this may be a triggering statement, but what if she came to you and said, Mom, I feel like a piece of trash that can just be thrown away? Because if this many young women can be assaulted. But I listened to the entire audiobook of Nobody's Girl. And oh my God, that was like so hard to get through. But man, it's so hard. But what would you say to her if she said, if these men can do this to these women and nobody feels compelled to hold anybody accountable, like how do you make sense of that as a mom of a daughter?
So well, I have three different parts of this that I want to answer. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want to go with first. The first one is I can't answer this question without first recognizing that my daughter and the world and the household that she's growing up in with a overly educated mom and a blue collar, technically minded father is going to grow up with access to information and access to emotional regulation skills that other children don't get to grow up with. So I want to say that right off the bat. And that is why it is important that we reset as a society on how we look at this, that we step up and recognize my job. One of the reasons I'm running for this office is not just because I want to be able to emotionally protect my daughter. It's because I want to be able to emotionally protect all children. And I recognize that a lot of children don't have access to the emotional regulation training that my daughter does in her home. With that being said, if my daughter came to me with that right now, my response to her would be to talk through what does make her feel strong. What does she do that makes her feel strong, and have her learn and to train her brain to focus on those things, right? And the third thing I want to point out is that I have actually been in an event space with other women where a young teenage Black girl here in North Alabama stood up and said, how am I supposed to feel hope when I know that the president is trying to re implement segregation? That's not an exact quote, but it's pretty much what this 15-year-old said. And I can't take credit for the response because it was Violet Edwards' event and she responded to it. And Commissioner Edwards is amazing. Essentially, the response that we gave her was to find community with other women who are fighting against this. So I reached out to her, told her she could come volunteer for my campaign. I kind of talked to her a little bit about the social media that she's consuming because that's a big issue among teenagers right now. They are accessing information that their parents really can't control as much as you think you can control it. It's really hard. But you also want your children to be literate of using the internet, right? So that's a multifaceted conversation, and it's about reprogramming what society is teaching young girls. And that is why it is important that we get women in office like me, like Ashley Dunham, like Mandy Ledkins, like Commissioner Edwards, that are going to fight for all children, that are going to fight to reset that standard of what that looks like.
Well, what I was thinking is that if I am a person with half a brain, like listening to this interview, listening to you talk, I'm going to be like, I need to go research this woman. So real quick, let's close out by you just telling us, like, what's the campaign website? How can people get involved and learn more about you?
So you can go to my website, CandiceDuvieillForCongress.com. You can schedule a one-on-one chat with me. So that is where I will just call you. We'll talk for 15 minutes about whatever issues you specifically want to talk about. You can also follow me on all the socials. I think I'm everywhere now. It's Candice for Congress, except Facebook, where it's Candice Duvieilh for Congress. You can sign up for our mailers. You can sign up to be a volunteer, host a house party. And of course, as always, the financial investments are very much needed by all of us candidates right now. And I really appreciate you having me, Jason. This was a lot of fun.
I mean, this has been an amazing experience. I could do this with you every week, but have a great evening.
I am happy to come back in a month or so and do a part 2 on policy and all of that stuff. If you
Okay,
like.
let's do that. All right. Enjoy your dinner with your family. Thank you so much. I hope I see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and politics of
But America,
and love are right.
we are not going back.